Ah,
All right. Looks like
you're running.
we're running or up and running.
It's telling me that we are.
There we go. Well, for some reason it didn't show up the names on the bottom, so I'll have to adjust that later on. Um, but I'm here with Andy from the Tangent,
Hi there.
and Andy has something new coming out that he's been working on, and it is called uh, Tangent for One.
That's right. Yep.
And just kind of let the people out there know what's the difference between the tangent and tangent for one.
Right. Well, it's. I think that it's all there in the name, really. It's it's been something I've always wanted to do, I guess. I mean, I've been in this band for 20 years and more now. The Tangent, and we've made 12 albums so far as the Tangent, and we've made it with a variety of lineups. And although the lineup's been very stable now since about 2014, um, coming up on, well, it's 10 years now, we've been pretty stable. Myself, Jonas Reingold, Luke Machin, Steve Roberts, and Theo Travis. We've made quite a lot of records together as that. But there's been there's been times in the past where I've brought the record almost to completion and thought, we could almost stop here before actually, going on. And this coincided with the fact that in the past couple of years, there's been several members of the band have been exceedingly busy. Jonas has been on world tours with the Steve Hackett group. Theo's been out with numerous people, including the Soft Machine. Luke's had lots of things to do. He's been making a solo record, which is fantastic, and he's also, you know, everybody's been doing something. So I took this time and thought, well, I'll make a I'll make another solo album, and instead of making my normal kind of solo album, I decided to just make a Tangent record, except be the only person on it. And this involved sort of a bit like the way that I think that I've always suspected John Anderson's solo album, Elias's son Hilo, worked, in that I actually had to learn how to play some of the instruments from scratch, really, to do it. So I bought well, in fact, I got bought a bass guitar by my partner Sally um, just over a year ago, and set about learning how to be able to put together a bass part for this record. I played drums on the record, and that's with sticks rather than on computers or anything. So although they're electronic drums, I still play them with sticks. Also, the wind instruments were done using a wind synthesizer that actually I blow and play rather like a recorder to do all the saxophones and flutes and stuff. And of course, the usual keyboards and a bit of guitar here and there. So it just turned into a complete operation. What it eventually became was a kind of struggle to make the whole record from the ground up to a finished product with just one man involved in all stages of the record. And that includes doing the album cover, the graphics, the artwork, the mastering, the authoring. The whole process is just done here at this house with me. And that's it. It was just a see if you can do it kind of thing, really. And it's been quite difficult. I won't say, and of course I have missed terribly playing with the other guys, but it's been this enormous challenge that I've learned an awful lot from.
And I was listening to a few. the songs you send me, and you wouldn't know that it's just one person playing everything. I mean, it it sounds like I'll say a classic Tangent album, but then there's some other elements that I've noticed in there, something coming from your past, PO90 sounds are in there in certain songs, not throughout the song, but just like a little like kind of glimpses.
Mm-hmm. I think that with PO90 and the Tangent, I wrote the songs for both of these bands, and I think that in recent years, the two kind of things have started to just mix really and become one thing. It's I didn't want to just carry on the Tangents being a retro prog band forever, and so of course
Right.
I used. In the past few albums, we've been doing all sorts of things that have involved using sort of metal and dance music and electronica and all that kind of stuff, woven in and amongst what you might call retro prog music. And gradually the edges between what was PO90 and what the Tangent is just gradually blurred. It's just a kind of a long career that had two names. It was actually called the Tangent before it was called PO90. It was a really long time ago,
Right.
and we only changed the name of the band because of the fact that there was another band called the Tangents from Sheffield who were a punk band back in the day. So, we eventually got the name back 20 years ago, really, and so yeah. Of course, recording technology. I mean, I am by no means the first person to make an album all on his own. And just mention John Anderson. Of course, the one that immediately will spring to everybody's mind is Mike Oldfield making Tubular Bells, where he played all the instruments. Yeah. Because the thing is that I wanted this to be different from, it's nothing like Mike Oldfield, and it's nothing like John Anderson. It's like the Tangent. And I think that, I spent a long time working on improvising and playing with myself, and, putting something down and then playing on top of it and reacting to what I played before. It's something that I'm quite into in music, actually, is what I might call kind of like musical method acting, in that, I like the little stories behind how a record was made. And if you ever heard my thing that I did with Jonas Rheingold and Roberto Tiranti, which was a kind of Italian album, we had different roles that we played within it. And in this one, I played the drums as the drummer. I was the drummer, and when I was doing bass, I was the bassist. I took on a kind of different personality, and sort of, and I keep on joking that I fell out with the drummer, even though they were both me, and taking on these different instruments and trying to approach them with an individualistic approach to each instrument. I think that's where I kind of got that feel of a band, and of course this is something that the Tangent's been very, very keen on right since the very first time we made a record. And of course, that was the time when we hadn't met each other, and none of us were in the same room as each other. And as I say, I hadn't even met half the band at the time, but we were making this record, and somehow we managed to make it, and it did sound like we were all together in the same room making this record. But we weren't actually even in the same country. It was, it was, and we didn't know, Jonas didn't know what I looked like at the time. So it's just a case of follow it, follow what the technology offers and make the best out of it. And there's obviously, there's always a reaction against technology, and there are some people who say, "Oh, it's not real; it's all technology." But that's just nonsense. I mean, you could have said the same thing about Yes in 1971. Oh, it's all technology. They've got a microphone on every single drum. That's not natural. All that kind of stuff you could have said, and you could have said the same before when they first plugged guitars in. That's not a guitar. That's a, So I've never really bothered about that. I've kind of always gone with the technology, and whatever's there, I kind of look at the possibilities of it and see, well, what could I do with that? And yeah, I think that's a kind of philosophy, really. Mm.
Right. So you got on the album, you got seven songs. The one that kind of stands out to me and it's very, very catchy is the first track, The North Sky.
The North Sky.
It's a very, very catchy song. And I like the fact that you have the full length, and then you have an edit, and I guess a single, to kind of help use that to like your promotional thing to say, hey, this is how it's going to sound. But then the other one that I was talking to you earlier today, the anachronism, that's the one that I told you it has a little bit of the PO90 and then a bit of Van der Graaf generator in
it. Yeah, I think you're right there. There's as with all Tangent records, particularly the ones in the more recent days of the band, which have been for the past 10 years, it sort of has this sort of dual personality. Some of the tracks are just up there, prog rockers, that kind of stuff. And then there's some which go a lot deeper. And the Anachronism is one of those. The North Sky is a very optimistic, upbeat song about my life in the place where I live, and the fact that the northern sky is a beautiful thing to look at, and it's about hopes and dreams, and the fact that in the search for truth, there are so many things nowadays that you can't rely on because it's so difficult to find truth. But the one thing that you can rely on is the fact that Polaris is the North Star. And it doesn't matter which group you're talking to, whether it's right-wingers, Republicans, Russians, Americans, even flat earthers, have to admit, Polaris is there. It doesn't matter if it's there, but it's there. And of that there's no fighting it. It won't be there actually. One day it will move, but for the time being, it's been there since the days of Shakespeare, and it will continue.
And then you got the second song is "A Light in the Darkness," which is another good song.
That's every so often I think it is okay for a musician to sort of like look around and feel a little bit sorry for himself sometimes. And it's not something I do a great deal, but the thing is that there does come a time when you feel terribly alone making records and wonder if anybody's ever going to hear them, whether anybody's ever going to like them. And of course, whether you will ever make any money and be able to buy food from the result of what you've made. And of course, in recent years, things have changed and gradually changed to the point where, Spotify has taken over the world, and a lot of people see Spotify as a kind of single-handed, single-stop music industry. And of course, it's not paying people. And I often wonder, have we reached a point where we're actually just sort of playing for likes, on Facebook? Is it, somebody gives you a like, is that what you were doing it for? And
Right.
in many ways, a lot of people, there are some new artists who are actually genuinely happy that they've got the likes. I think we need more than that. So it's a song about that, and it's a song about this. I kind of sometimes just think, here I am in this room. The entire rest of the universe is outside this room, and here I am making this little tiny song that's of so little consequence. Will anybody ever hear it? Will it ever mean anything to anybody? That kind of thing. Just it's a very difficult song to explain, but somehow it all makes sense to me. I mean, I listen to the news, and there's so many terrible stories and appalling things happening, and I suddenly think, well, what will my comment even bring to the table? Will it solve anything? Probably not, but that's it, and it just ends by saying, I'll do all this, and if you'd like, you can give me a like, and that's it. So it's a bit sort of poor me. But
with the Spotify thing is I do use it, but I use it as a convenience of whatever I own in my collection, so that if I don't feel like going to my collection, pull out the CD to go pop it in the player, or if I'm out somewhere, and I want to hear some music, I use it as that. But what I don't use it for, it's not my library. I don't know if I don't own it, the CD. I generally go and buy the CD, and then if the band has their music up on there, I'll listen to it there, or there's YouTube music and Amazon music, stuff like that. But a friend of mine was telling me one time, he's a music teacher, and his students didn't even know what a CD was.
Oh yeah,
because they're streaming, and he was saying, yes, but we need to make money, and it was almost like they thought that musicians magically their instruments showed up and they played their stuff and then put it onto the streaming, where there's no they didn't realize that there was costs involved, your instrument, your time, studio time if you need it, and then to press the CD and everything. It's like it's just something that a lot of the younger people don't understand the concept.
Well, yes, I met some. Indeed, I actually lived with some a family who had some teenagers, and this is 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and they were all really big music fans, and they were really into things like Rage Against the Machine, Metallica, and that kind of band, and they used to go to festivals, and between all of them, not one of them owned a single CD, and they'd never bought one. Why would you buy music? That was it, it's free. And I think this is, it's a generational thing. Because of course I grew up very much looking at the musicians, the people who I admired, and realized that some of them may not be rich, but they are making a living out of making this music, and I thought, this is what I want to do with my life, and
Right.
and so I followed that path, and indeed, you know, uh, I'm sitting here today and I've eaten food and which has been paid for by music, but
Right.
there's a hell of a lot of people who don't do that. Their music is sort of like something that's out there and people like and listen to, but it's become a hobby for a lot of people. And to me, this has never been my hobby. This has been my life's work. It's my calling. It's what I do. And it's in the end, we have, since the arrival of the internet, which has undoubtedly given us so many possibilities. Yeah, I really love and flourish on the possibilities that technology has given us. There are aspects of it where essentially a kind of what I would describe as a kind of criminality has been sort of like smoothed over and legalized and made into being the norm.
Right.
And so, I would always, and I still do, describe Spotify as essentially they're just a bunch of dirty pirates with a very, very good lawyer, and
Right.
and that's essentially what they are. Because I mean, the guy actually did start off as a pirate, and has since sort of like managed somehow to legalize the idea of taking people's music and giving them naff all money for playing it, and removing all
Right.
our skills from the hardware that we used to sell, putting it there and saying this is the music industry now, like it or love it, and no, you're not getting any money. So,
I know.
you know,
I
it's not.
just don't get it that that they expect you, the musician, to basically put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something, but then they don't want to pay you for it. And it's like that just basically, like I say, it's criminal.
Yeah, the cart before the
And
horse. Any of those are, tail wagging dog. All those kind of little cliches apply. I mean, Spotify is becoming bigger and bigger and bigger by the day. And of course, the other ones that follow in Spotify's wake also getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And there are. I mean, when I actually look at my return, my royalties, my income, and everything like that, and it comes through, the amount of money I get from actually Spotify is so unbelievably low that there's actually not much point in having it.
right.
It's a kind of. But the fact is that I'm on a record company. That record company has a deal with another record company, and that record company uses Spotify. So my music is on Spotify by default. It's not my choice. If it was my choice, I would take it off, uh, because essentially, I don't think they value. Well, they have no value. I've never heard of me. It's just somewhere on a hard drive. There's a little folder with my music on, and when it gets played, they send me. Well, they don't send me anything except for an absolute. I don't think I'd be able to buy all my albums on CD from the money I've earned from Spotify yet. So it's just a. But this is a musician complaining about it. Let me tell you that from the point of view of the consumer, it's the best deal known to man. I mean, this is virtually what amounts to the whole history of human beings and music in the whole world available to you for $10 a month. I mean,
Right.
that is just so unbelievably unrealistic that you can have access to everything for this paltry amount. It's a deal that the consumer just can't turn down. It's
Right.
and it's
And
always
that,
music that goes first, because it's they're the ones that get ripped off first, because the technology comes along. Video is a lot more complicated to do because it uses more bandwidth and more, so that music was the first kind of thing that could get pirated really easy on the internet. And then the Hollywoods of the world learned from all the terrible things that happened to music and made sure they were set up right. So anyway, I ain't a businessman, I'm just
right.
just a guy, and the I don't. I don't really go for this system, and I prefer to listen to music that I've bought,
Exactly.
and if I hear it somewhere and I think I would like that, then I will try to buy the CD. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's how that's my way of doing it is like I get constant recommendations for things, and I always like to kind of take a listen to it to see if that recommendation is a valid one for me. And majority of the time it is, and I go and seek out the music because I think it's important for me to have a hard copy. It's a it's showing support for the band, and B, it's something physical for me to hold on to. It's like this is mine. I own this album,
Yeah.
and I get to listen to it anytime I want to. Whereas on
Yeah.
a streaming service, that album that could be, let's say, your favorite album in the world could be there today, but gone tomorrow because of license things. So,
Yeah. That's it. You're quite right. And basically, what I did, I've got a fairly big CD collection that goes back years. I personally decided to store it all on hard disks. So years ago, I've just committed the whole thing to a massive hard disk system, and I can listen to music, you know, thousands of tracks, which are all just stored here locally, and I purchase them, so it's my music, So I
right,
like to, but times change, and uh, this has happened, and there's very little we can do to stop it. The genie's out of the bottle, isn't it? So
right.
and that's I guess that that in some way the a like in the darkness is something to do with that. I think that and I see a young, a new up and coming artist, and see that all they're getting is people saying how great it is, and lots of thumbs ups and lots of likes. I kind of thinking, yeah, but are they actually getting paid?
Right, right.
It'd be really
Exactly.
nice. It would be really nice if they did. So yeah, I worry about the future, but that's basically what I do. I spend most of my time worrying about the future. So I always have done.
And okay, your next song, The Fine Line, you know,
The Fine Line, yeah, that's another song about. Um, it's a kind of slight semi-humorous song, black humor about in the past few years, we've kind of been able to turn the news on or read our daily newspaper or whichever website we get our news from, and by the time we've finished it, we think we've got no chance of surviving until lunchtime. We're going to be dead, we're going to starve, we're going to be bombed, we're going to die of a disease, this, that, and the other. And and it's just this constant sort of like fear mongering that we live under. And and when I say that, I'm not saying this is some kind of conspiracy by the media to make us live in fear. I mean, things are not at their best at the moment, and I don't think they have been for quite a while. And because somebody sent me a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram, where the little circles intersect, and these there's the two circles, and one was the apocalypse, and the other one was still having to go to work. And the two they came together, and the bit in the middle was somehow we ended up here. And, so that here we are. Everything's really apocalyptic, but we've still got to go to work. And I kind of thought, that's really interesting, and that set me off on writing this song. But that song's kind of got this sort of jazzy Steely Dan thing going on in it, I guess. It's quite humorous. The guy at work who's got a coffee on his desktop and a gas mask in the drawer, and that kind of thing. That was the first song for this album, actually. It was the first one I wrote, and that's the one where I started working out, can I actually make a whole album on my own? That was the one that tested it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. So then we were talking about the other one, the longest song on the album, the Anachronism.
Well, the Anachronism is, as you would probably know, is that I really do like working in the long format song, and I think actually the Tangent holds the record for the number of songs longer than 15 minutes. And I'm talking songs. I don't mean improvisations or electronic things. I'm talking about songs with words that are longer than 15 minutes. I think we've done more than any other band. So there you go. You can check that out, but I think you'll find I'm right. So I do like working in that format. It's just something I fell in love with when I was a kid, listening to those pieces and wanting to make them. And so, of course, the Anachronism is the big one from this album, and this one, of course, is one of my political songs, which is something which I've done for a long time. Some people don't like the fact that I do political pieces, but actually, despite this being a political piece, I think this one is actually sort of makes it quite clear just how much I hate politics and the people involved in it. I wanted to write this piece because, of course, this year when the record was going to be released, of course, I knew there are going to be all these elections all over the world. There's going to be more elections than there's ever been in one single year, which is quite interesting, really. And the Germans are going to go for it. The English are going for it. Well, the UK, the Americans are having one. And, right across the world, there's all these really important elections going to be happening. And in the meantime, there's a whole lot of wars going on that sort of like nobody will be able to decide what to do about these wars until the election results are in, and it's just really utterly horrible. And, I personally don't think there's a single candidate anywhere really that's grabbed me as a person I would actually like to be leading human beings through the troubles that we face, but and this song is about how the different methods of governing us, like democracy, plutocracies, aristocracies, and kleptocracies and theocracies, how they all totally let us down. And fail to actually take into account the very fact that, it's not about those crosses, it's about us, and so it's a big song about politics, but it's not really coming down in favor of any particular political theory, apart from the fact that it ought to be more about people rather than about parties and systems. Yeah, I think that's what it. And it's ending, of course, because the actual ending of the song is a kind of optimistic reprise of the idea of following the North Star again, and finding a path that's true and that we can believe in, and that because in the end, a lot of the time I get accused of being naive, and I kind of think, well, naivety is actually quite a good thing, really, because there's open-mindedness is sort of implicit in naivety, and examining possibilities that other people have just ruled out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So so the Anachronism, it's quite a heavy track. It's got some metal in it, which is kind of good. I enjoyed doing that. It's got a bit of hip hop and soul, a lot of prog. It's a kind of whisk through everything that the Tangent is, could be, has been, hasn't been, will be, all in one piece. Really, I think that's what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, it's really good. And then I get it. What you said, it should be more about the people than the politics, because all over the world, even in the United States, it's getting to the point where it's like the politicians they're almost like influencers. What's on people that are on YouTube, that these influencers, which I never understood that whole concept. Because I've watched a couple of these things that are these influencers, and they're just doing the absolute most mundane things that I look at it and I'm like going, I did that and it was no big deal. Why are you making a big deal about it? It's like,
well, yeah, I mean, obviously, people of our generation, often, are completely confused by some of the things we see on the internet and think, how is that interesting to anybody? But then again, I just have to remember, the way my mum sort of, she just couldn't see the value I saw in Yes. She couldn't see what I saw in Star Wars, and she just thought sort of rubbish.
right.
Same with Star Trek, which is kind of even worse. But like we have there is a generation gap, and it will always be there. And the fact is that we are that peculiar generation. We led roughly half our lives before the internet, and half our lives since the internet. Because I was 33 years old when I first went on the internet, and now I'm 64. So it's about half my life on the net, half before it. And there's not going to be another generation of people who have that. So we were those kind of weird people on the cusp of everything.
Right. Yeah, that's the one thing. When I'd say tell someone, oh, I went on the internet basically about around the same age that you were, but a little towards the end of the 90s, and it's like they go, well, what did you have any of the, they would list things at Facebook. I said, no, no Facebook, no, nothing. There was absolutely nothing. It was just bare bones. Just if you had to go into a forum of some sort, you had basically a whiteboard with text. That's it. There was no emojis. There was no graphics or anything. It was just bare bones. And they kind of go, how do you do that?
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, and before that, there was nothing else, which of course, and that's one of the reasons why, we often puzzle as to why records don't sell as well, because there was nothing else. I've been through this so many times, but the whole reason why so many of us were into music and it became such a thing for us and so important to our lives is because what else was there to do in the school holidays on a Tuesday afternoon when it was raining,
Right.
Because the TV in Britain, there was no TV during the day. It didn't come on till about 6 o'clock at night. And we hadn't got any video games. Video recorders hadn't been invented yet. The only media that would actually work was a record player. That was it.
Right.
Nothing else worked. Everything else was off on a Tuesday afternoon in September. So you just sort of like put your records on and it just became part of you. And of course, you were saving up to buy that next one because there was no way you could download it. You could tape it off your friend. Of course, that's what we did. They had this, what they call a sneaker net, I think, where we're just sort of like taping our friends' record collections and they were taping ours and we were sharing it that way. But it was a different thing, which did actually involve some CDs or some albums being bought, even if not quite as many being tapes. But yeah, that was our experience. And then the internet came on, and of course, that all I saw when the internet arrived was just a huge index of possibilities. I thought, now I can do this, now I can do that, and everything. And although whether or not anybody believes it, it's in the Tangents kind of history. I think that PO90 was the first band to post an MP3. We did it the day after the MP3 was actually released. We actually managed to make one and get it on the net on our site. This is in 1994 or 5. I think it's 5 actually. And like and then of course by the time we reached 2002, Royner Stolten and I were sort of sending each other files. We could send each other little real audio clips and MP3s. But because of the fact that we wanted WAV file quality, we were actually sending each other CDs in the post because downloading a WAV was just too slow on a slow modem before broadband.
Right.
So all these things have just gradually built up, and they've made the possibilities fantastic. But the net's obviously changed in its character and has just become a lot more about sort of like celebrity influencers rather than sort of like people who are actually doing much with it. I mean, for example, you'll find that, like, for example, upstairs, I've got a synthesizer which is made by Arturia. It's called an Arturia Matrix Brute. Now, and I'll make some videos. I'll write some music on it. But people are more interested in the actual thing. So a synthfluencer, as they call them, will come along and he'll play. He'll show you about and make a video about the synthesizer, and that will get millions of views. Oh yeah, millions of views. And the guy, and and the people who actually make music with them, unless they were so famous a long time ago, they're not going to do anything. It's kind of really weird. It's just so strange. But hey, it's the world, and I ain't complaining because I'm still here, really, and still making music, and I've been doing it a long time now, and it's good. So I should stop moaning.
All right, the next one we got is the single.
The single is a Parallel 90 Degrees song. It was on the album we made a long time ago called The Time Capsule. And I always thought, well, wouldn't it be fun? Because the album was called The Time Capsule. Wouldn't it be fun if in 25 years I dug it out and did a cover version of it? So I did it. It's 25 years ago. So, hey, out it came, out of its time capsule. And here it is. And that was a song I wrote about the media at the time, and people setting the agenda for what the future was going to look like. At the time, I was, concerned that history was being written by the media, and of course it is, and I was right. And I had to change very little. There are a few sort of names are changed within the song and everything, but it's that's it. It's a 25-year-old song, resurrected and broke. One of the good things about it is that the single itself was really kind of the blueprint for the Tangent. PO90 was a band that, although it had its kind of progressive rock intentions, it wasn't what I would call a progressive rock band. It was, it was more like in the kind of Porcupine Tree, Vulgar Unicorn kind of area. And this song, the single, had that kind of bouncy progginess that we've reused again and again since in the Tangent. We've had that sort of thing that we've had songs like GPS Culture, songs like Spark in the Ether, and Crisis in Midlife, that sort of poppy, upbeat, progressive rock of the type that sort of PFM used with Celebration or that kind of stuff,
Right.
And so it was in very many ways, it was kind of like the blueprint for what the Tangent would become. But back in PO90 days, at the end of the 1990s. So it was nice to be able to do it again, particularly the fact that it was always supposed to be this time capsule. So there you go.
Right. And then now, going back to the North Sky, you have your radio edit. We've discussed that.
Radio edit. That's worked out actually really well because sometimes not everybody wants 11 minutes of a song, and that's something that I totally get. And there is a kernel of a pop song within that song, the North Sky. And I just thought, right, I'm going to find the actual guts of it. What is the song? And take all the prog away and just leave it as the pop song. And yeah, I think it worked really well. I mean, I've done some other radio edits in the past which haven't been quite as good, but somehow or other, this one, it carries a great deal of the song's message and a lot of its feel, except instead of being 11.5 minutes long, it's 3.5 minutes long. And yeah, I'm very pleased with it. And of course, it means I could make a video for it that didn't have to be 11 minutes long, which would have taken forever to edit together. So yeah.
And then we got the final one, Tea at Betty's Simulation.
Well, that is a bonus track.
Okay.
It's not really part of the record. It's just something that it's something I cooked up probably a couple of years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. And it's just a silly idea. It's 20 minutes of just of the idea of a band getting really bored playing at one of those sort of like a tea dance or a place where elderly people are sitting tea and there's this jazz combo going do in the background, and it's just of the band getting frustrated and starting to play slightly more complicated music and then slightly heavier kind of music. So it all starts off, you can hear the cutlery rattling in the background, this nice kind of cool piano jazz. But
Right.
10 minutes into the song, they're doing thrash metal uh, and it's all gone completely haywire until they finally get back on a keel and it all ends off with just. But that's all it is. It was just a silly idea, and when you've got a bonus track to put on the record, it's kind of fun to just put something that's not quite as serious, not quite as well put together. It's just something, a nice idea. Where could that have gone? I like doing things like that, so I did it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking forward for this coming out. And uh, can you divulge any of that kind of information as to when it's going to arrive on?
Well, the album will be out in May, and it's under the title. It has a title which at the moment I'm not at liberty to release, but it will be released by a record company soon, and it's going to be called Tangent. It's under the title Tangent for One, and in the end, I would say that if you know what I mean by the word canon, as in Star Trek canon, and
Right.
I think that it is actually Tangent canon material. I see it very much as the 13th album by the Tangent, except the band aren't on it. It doesn't mean in any shape or form that the band are over. In fact, I'm already working on the 14th album, and that will be an album that I'm hoping all the members of the band will be on that one, and it's going to be quite a big album. Is that in terms of that's a conceptually based record, which is going to be that one. I'm hoping is going to be called Was. So we will see how it goes. And you may remember we did an album in 2013, which was kind of an electrical symphonia, where we used a lot of orchestration and stuff. But we're wanting to do another one like that that's got big orchestral sections and works like a classical piece, but of course rocks like hell. That's the that's the idea.
Well, it sounds like got a lot of stuff coming out, and I really think once people hear this Tangent for One, they're gonna. I think people are gonna really love it. It's how did they say, it's up to your standards of what you've done in the past. So it's not like you're taking a complete turn towards different material, but
I think if I'd done that, I would have done it I would have done it as a solo artist, if I was going to do something completely different. The fact is that I approached this one as I'm going to make a Tangent record, except this time I'm going to play everything, and that was it. It was just something. It was something to do, and the band have been incredibly supportive to me and let me go ahead and do it. And as I say, we'll we'll all return on tangent 14. But in the meantime, I think this one will be a really. I think a lot of people are going to like it.
Oh,
There'll
I
be
think so too.
people who go, well, it's electronic drums. Well, okay, it's. I mean, that's just the same as somebody saying that a mellotron was an electronic orchestra. No, it's just an electronic orchestra. It's not the real thing. Well, that's
Right.
just an eternal argument between me and tech haters. So but
But
the progressive musicians that I followed since I was a 12-year-old boy have lapped up every technological development. They've gone for synthesizers, electronic organs, they've gone for samplers, they've gone for, and gradually, you know, changed the way music is made forever, and I think it's all for the best, to be honest, because just because a new way comes along doesn't mean the old way ceases to exist. You can still go back and you can still use a tape recorder if that's what you really want. Yeah. I haven't used a tape recorder now for 30 years, and I'm not planning to anytime soon. But you know,
well, Andy, I really appreciate you taking the time out to do this interview with me, and I'm
it's
really looking forward to this album.
so am I, because when it's out, I can get on with the next one. I am one of these guys, I'm not as fast as some people, like Mr. Morse, Mr. Neil Morse. He can really write lots and lots of music. I don't write as much as he does, and it does take me a very long time to do it. I mean, people think, you get, oh, another Tangent record. Well, that's 12 now, but like, hey, that's 20 years. I mean, Yes's 12th album was Big Generator. And that was only sort of like 15 years after they started, So, I mean, they'd released their fifth album. They did between 1969 and 1972. They did first album, Time and a Word, Yes album, Fragile, and Close to the Edge. 5 albums by 1972. That's incredible,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
they did Tales of Topographic Oceans in 73 and slowed down and managed to get Relayer out in 74. So, that's by which point and they've added Yes songs on. They've got more than 10 albums in well, less than 10 years. They're more like 6, so we're not that fast. We're not that fast. It's been good to
So
talk to you, Rob. Good to see you looking so
you
well.
too. Yeah, and again, everybody, when it gets announced, it's an album to buy.
Well, I'm very glad you think so, and thank you for the recommendation to everybody. Did you hear that? Ron, he says it's an album to buy. So keep in tune. There'll be more details about it coming soon. This is going out earlier than the publicity material, so it hasn't actually been announced officially yet. So I've got to keep a few things under my hat. So keep watching the Tangent website. There'll be more information on it next month. In March, there will be info on the Tangent website about it, and how to pre-order it, all the gubbins, some videos to see, and music samples to hear and everything. So we'll make sure everybody's got a chance to listen before they buy. And then, of course, if they buy it, they can always listen to it on Spotify because I've got no choice in the matter.
All right. Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate your time.
Hey, it's no problem at all, man. Yeah, and yeah, thanks very much indeed. For keeping on going and keeping on talking to people like me who, people who spread the word are as important as the people who make the music. So it's a very valuable thing you guys do. People like yourself, Auxiliary Radio, and all the different websites that review and champion progressive rock music. It's fantastic. So all of us genuinely appreciate it. So, all right.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, and I just hope it's boring. All right.
No, you were fantastic. It was a good talk.
Oh, all right then. Good night. The two parrotfish, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
Best wishes, Rob. Take care.
You too.
Shall I press leave now?